Hello, everyone, and welcome to our August TMAC meeting. So good to see you all. Hope your summer was good. We will start today with introductions. You get us started today, Greg?
I just say to Cheeto.
Yeah, great.
I'm Greg McFarland. I'm a TMAC member.
I'm TJ Burkle with Bird, the shared electric bike and scooter company that's operating here in Provo. Thanks for having me today.
Andy, Provo City staff.
Alan, Provo City. Pressure Development. Logan Golding, Development Services.
Lisa Jensen, TMAC member and Provo Planning Commission member.
Brian Kiesler, Public Works.
Gordon Haight, Engineering.
Joseph Gandy with Public Works.
Katie Johnson, Public Works Engineering.
Bill Fillmore, City Council.
Jeff McLaughlin, a TMAC member.
Kay Schuler with Engineering.
James Cornby, Parks and Recreation.
Beth Alligood, TMAC. Oh, Beth Alligood, Province, TMAC.
And Joy McMurray, TMAC chair.
Joy, we have the.
Oh, yes, and
David Day.
you kindly gave up his chair for me. Very courteous member. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. Would anyone like to move that we approve the minutes from our July meeting?
I move that we approve the minutes from July meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Jeff, let's turn the time over to you for update on our letter to the mayor and the city council regarding our updates to the bike master plan.
Okay, we got back from everyone, or most everyone, I don't remember if it was actually everyone, saying they thought a lot of the stuff was good. I also think that it's in a good place. I don't know if anyone thought that where I put commentary in on this page that I meant for that to go in, but that wasn't anything in purple I planned on getting rid of there. But if you have any other thoughts on it, that's fine. So we'll just go through a couple of the suggested changes. Craig wanted to clean up all this bicycle or active transportation. Just said, you know what, it just says bicycle in the plan. We'll keep it straight, keep it simple. I'm fine with that too.
I only worry about losing that emphasis that we talked about a lot in the meeting last time.
So I think the other emphasis is really important, and I think it makes sense to broaden the scope. But I think where we say for the first time, Chapter 7 called for this thing, we shouldn't change it right there in that sentence. So it's just, yeah. So the next paragraph then kind of says as we update 2025 to include micromobility and other forms of transportation. So I think that's a fine change. And all right.
Can you go a little bit, Jeff?
Yeah.
That end of the last main paragraph, just that, and so the commentary, it's in pink, and so the commentary following this letter reflects bicycling and other active transportation modes. I just didn't love the phrasing there, like, and yeah, so the, yeah, and what does commentary mean in this case? I felt like it was a term I wasn't. Yeah, maybe recommendations or like, I would love to rephrase
you
that.
You could also make that sentence smaller by putting a period after implemented and just say the recommendations following this letter reflect these other modes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
Otherwise, I liked Greg's tightening of the language.
There we go. That we don't.
Excellent.
Don't lose it.
Right. And then it's just this part that was added afterward, which is almost entirely lifted from the bicycle master plan. I went in there and found their bullet points and said, okay, yeah, that's stuff.
Sorry, Jeff, go back up again. Lisa had asked why the general plan reference had been struck.
I've been struck. Remember the general plan, I think that part, maybe I can follow the link, but I think that
there is a transportation section in there.
The matrix on page 96. Page matrix, 495. Yeah. Oh, I had that in there, I believe, because some of the stuff actually has somewhere on here, some of this stuff actually has Bike Walk Provo listed as person, but last month we took out the bit where we're talking about we're leading on Bike Walk Provo a bunch. So I took that out. I think that's what it was.
I would still leave it there simply because it points the council back to the record that is brand new that says we still value these same ideas, and this is where they're referenced in a brand new document. That's why I would leave it there.
I agree with that.
I agree.
Okay. Through that.
Okay, now we can scroll down again.
And so here is the bullet points. I mean, you all, I guess, reviewed those. And then here it just says with scientific process in order to get rid of the fact that it would be not necessarily the same time each year.
We don't need to specify
Knowledgeable
the
traffic
details of how they would collect
Yeah.
it. Engineers
Yeah.
are capable of figuring that out.
So that's where I stand on this kind of thing.
Jeff, you had a comment also, though, asking in terms of practical implementation.
Oh, this part right here?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't want to put it in a letter about it necessarily because they get to decide about it. But as I was poking around old documents, I was like, well, there was, you know, when Austin Taylor came in for parking, they also kind of added sort of a sustainability side to it. And it looks like the parking has gone away and Hannah also now is sustainability. And I thought, as part of what she does, could that get this sort of responsibility for that folded in? If it doesn't, I don't know what her workload is like, or if she's no time or what, but I just was
Didn't she
wondering.
tell us last month that that is her? That she
Yeah.
gave that
I mean, regardless of how the council implements it or how staff divvies up their responsibilities, we're bringing attention to the council that they said and voted on the fact that they would hire a coordinator for bicycling. And that's, we don't need to give them exit ramps or off ramps. We're just reminding them that this was a decision you once
And
made.
they can decide for
They can
themselves
decide
if
if
they
they
want it.
need, if they still need it. So
That's
I would.
why I was trying to just kind of keep it in a
Yeah.
comment. I wonder how they would divvy up those responsibilities if she would work with transportation.
Maybe let's just mention to Bill as our city council liaison that we're bringing to the council's attention as we were reviewing this old bike master plan that it was said that we would have a staff position, but Jeff is suggesting, you know, if there are funding limitations, then it might be possible to combine that with existing staff positions in some way.
Or just reemphasize it. I don't know what the council.
The council
even
has many options, yeah, that they
I
may
don't know
want to do.
if the administration chooses how they split up work for their people, and council is legislative and financing.
I think the council and mayor's office will view that language as aspirational.
Yeah.
But budgetary constraints probably means that existing staff will somehow take that.
I think the issue with the letter is that we were trying to just pull it point from what had been
Yeah.
approved by the council before. And so, while I don't think there should be another staff position because there's several people in the city that do these things already that can just add to their letter. We were just trying to pull exactly what was in before that was approved, just to come back and get their attention and say, hey, this is what it said before. We just want to bring your attention back to it. However you decide to do it, we just want to bring your attention back to it.
Yeah.
So I think if they go back and look at the document, they can decide. And
So up above at the end of the letter, we say the recommendations below, blah, blah, blah. They're not actually listed as recommendations. They're just like restating what was in the plan so how do we want to segue between saying, look at these other things, we're done writing the letter?
So
Do we want to title that? Do we want to describe it a little better?
So I actually think, I think the discussion, I was not here for the discussion last month, and I can put that in my sandwich to make this point. I think the idea that focusing on bicycling alongside all these other modes that have come around since 2013 is good. But the point of this letter is to just say, hey, the council wants to vote on all these things. We've noticed they haven't been implemented. I don't think we need, I think making additional statements about like, oh, and we can do this and this and this on top of these things, it confuses the message and it dilutes its impact.
So I wasn't even contesting that. I was saying, we just have a list there. Do we need to explain what the list is? Or do we just,
And-
like, maybe like saying something like, these are the items we refer to in the above letter or something? Just
Yeah,
so
that
that
would-
they
that
know
would
that
be
we're
okay.
not giving new information, but this is something we pulled from a document they've already approved, they've already should be aware of.
Yeah.
I think we need something to say what this is that we're pointing them to.
I think that makes sense too. And I guess I was making my point in relation to if we just presented these are the things from the plan.
That's good.
We wouldn't
What you're
even
writing
need
there.
the introductory sentence. And could this list go in the body of the letter, right? Does it have to be an appendix?
You list them in, we do put in their bicycle coordinator and website and counts in that paragraph, and we link it to them. I think this down here was just to be nice to.
Maybe just like language from or, I don't know. I think that subtitle is perfect, because all the purple's gonna be
I like
gone,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, this doesn't work.
Or referenced unimplemented programs referenced or above or something, I don't know.
Maybe the final sentence of the letter could be a specific list of unimplemented programs follows this letter,
There you go.
updated to reflect that bicycles are not the only.
If you combine those two together, then you would need to have a title on the list.
That's right.
That would work.
So, attached to this letter,
Do you need to make a distinction between programs and hoped for activities?
Maybe we call them goals instead of programs.
Programs seems to imply something that's been approved specifically and funded.
Oh, I don't know.
Objectives?
For me, the thing about programs was it's not physical in the ground infrastructure. It's stuff that people work on, as a informational or administrative, rather than we striped a bike lane, we put in bump outs, that kind of stuff.
They are actually programs if you're talking about a position and a website and doing a count. Like, those are actions, not physical.
Yeah, the thing that brought this up in the first place was, as we were reviewing the transportation master plan, we saw that the 2020 transportation master plan had done a great job of folding in all the physical side of things, but it just hadn't picked up some of the program stuff here as much. And so we just wanted to say to the council, look, this was part of the bicycle master plan before it was valid enough and cared about enough in the past to be added as an appendix to the previous transportation master plan. And then further into this master plan, I was worried that in 2025, as you get farther and farther from 2013, you just start to discount more and more the things that are in there and eventually just kind of forget about them.
I don't think it's inappropriate to reference the general plan. Remember that the general plan itself is aspirational.
Yeah, I don't say, you must do this, city council. I know.
So
The reason we're referencing the general plan is to point to the fact that as recently as 2020, these aspirations were shared by.
I just think it's called an unimplemented program.
Oh, I see.
Sounds like, hey, you agreed to do this, you funded it, why aren't you doing it? So just be cautious in your wording.
How about specific suggestions or?
Just say, what about
Recommended
specific
programs?
items.
objectives, whatever. it works.
Objectives or.
I like objectives.
Items.
Do we want to say unmet objectives? Because it's
Yeah.
not a program, but it hasn't
I
been met yet.
I do think we need to emphasize that this was something that they said they were going to do and have not done. Whether there was funding allocated to it or not, that's not our responsibility here.
Something that people wanted to do. They were going to do to reflect your language.
I don't think you want to kind of call the council out and say, hey, you put this in your aspiration you have and you haven't done it, why not?
I don't think that's our goal at all, Bill. I think our goal is purely informational.
Well, no, you're calling the city council's attention to something that's a worthwhile objective. Recommending. There's supposed to be that in the program. in place.
Maybe the way we could say that is something like this is to be added to the master plan's items of consideration or something like that. So, because in the master plan, we list all the things that would be great, and so we're just adding these as things that we think are great as well. So it's not, and like I said, the master plan's inspirational, aspirational, and so it's, and inspirational. And so we want to,
When you say master plan, are you talking about transportation master plan or general plan?
both.
The transportation master plan is a little bit less vague than the general plan.
Each plan subject to it, yeah.
And
So
we're saying we want this information to be
In the-
considered now and also in the revision of the transportation master plan.
I'm just saying, put in as part of that. So, so we're saying be included as part of the plan, not saying, to be stuff that wasn't funded or things, just say, put it in as part of the plan.
Don't forget it.
Exactly. At the very least, you're saying, don't forget this. This isn't.
Don't forget we cared about this.
So if it's in the plan, then it has the same weight as everything else in the plan.
We're conscious of the timing in this, and that we're recommending city council, you could think about this right now, or as we revamp, in about a year from now to start revamping the transportation master plan, we could certainly add those in at that time. So let's go ahead and be aware of these, we feel, important elements from the bicycle master plan that were not included in the last version of the transportation master plan.
Works for me. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the next few years roll out in terms of budget.
Yeah.
Because we've been flush with cash from the federal government the last couple of years. The Biden administration's cash now response to the pandemic gave us a lot of extra funds to address certain things. So we're going to be back to normal revenues here in the future. And so I think these are all great things to aspire to. Let's see what we can do. And by all means, keep it on the burner and make clear to the council and the mayor your priorities.
I don't think we need a salutation.
Okay.
It's kind of written in memo form. Does anyone disagree with that? Since you're trying to fit it all on one page.
Oh, it was already one pager.
But do put the date. Do we list our names separately or just list it as a committee?
I'm going to see it as a committee.
We have had some concern in the past over committee members who perhaps did not sign off on something and didn't want a blanket, like all of TMAC approved this, unless that was an accurate statement.
I thought everyone's names.
We got
They were
everybody?
fine with that, right?
Okay, then we can do this committee.
Am I missing somebody?
No,
Everybody.
everybody.
Okay, all right.
So we just put Transportation Mobility Advisory Committee, or do you want us to list it out?
If we in fact have all said, we're fine with it.
We're unanimous in it.
I don't think we made any changes today that weren't already included in the discussion. We just addressed.
Find it. Well, I've updated.
Well, if you want to give it some emphasis, list all your names.
You
Or
think so?
or you say this was unanimous vote. You felt strongly about this. It wasn't-
Transportation and Mobility
it wasn't-
Advisory Committee by unanimous vote.
It wasn't simply a majority vote. We're all united.
Yeah, but yeah. I know, it's
honestly
going to
don't
you,
see
Bill,
it.
so whatever you think would be most efficient.
Well, I mean, if it was unanimous vote, say that.
Yeah, okay.
By unanimous vote, I would think.
A unanimous vote.
Yeah.
You got
I
it.
just feel weird putting unanimous vote when nobody voted.
Bill, do you recommend a salutation since you probably read more? I do not remember us sending very many memos to city council, so I'm not sure what the protocol is or the language. We're
I think
good?
what we do, I've seen what we do when planning commission passes, when you put their name, or put their name, their district, whatever. What we can do is, your name, this represents BYU, this district, we'll just have everybody listed. And I don't know that we need to put by a vote if we're not voting on it, but just put everybody's name, and that shows that it's unanimous, that everybody's name is attached to the letter, and let us just,
And we'd
we'll
all have
do some things
conversations.
internally to try to keep it in one page, but we'll,
Okay.
let us add.
So we
a
don't need
little-
to finalize that language for you.
Let us just do that bit.
So we could just vote on it with the understanding that this.
If you want to vote, you can, and we'll do that,
Or is it something that we need to vote
I
on,
don't
to send something up?
A unanimous vote.
yeah, that might be good. If it's a voting thing, generally you have to agendize a vote like we do with the action item. So
Oh,
if,
I thought that was I guess we didn't.
Oh, so since it's not on the agenda as an action item, we can.
yeah, I don't like.
Well, we don't have to use the word vote. That's
like
just
consent.
consent. Because everyone on the council did.
Consent's a hot word these days.
It sounds like Gordon is encouraging us to go ahead and list our names and also our districts.
Just a little grid that we have.
Yeah, our little grid. That sounds great.
Yep, cool.
This shows who you represent, and that the council can look at you and know
Who we
you
are.
represent this area. And I think I like what he's saying. I think that helps add value. Names are more important than
Unanimity.
people do care about your name.
And you're implicitly inviting people in the council, the mayor's office to call you. Explain this to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to have
We
more
need to
personal.
contact the people to make sure they're okay with their name being on it.
Did they already agree?
Well,
They said they liked it as
Jim said he
a,
approved.
Jim said approved as it is.
and so did,
Dave Hurtado also.
so did Dave.
Yep.
That's why I said if you change the language to consent, they've already contributed to it in the read, and we don't have to.
We'll prepare a letter, and next week we'll just send it to you, and if no one, as long as you spell your name right, get it back to us.
All right, that's good. So it's good as it is. One thing I wanted to point out, in response to our discussions, I was reached out to by Bike Walk Provo. And they said, hey, don't forget to, we kind of have a city of similar size that we look at and we see how they're doing things, and just to say, don't get discouraged about the fact that maybe this won't happen, because a city of similar size has, they have not just bike to work day once in the year, they've got each season kind of thing, and they have multiple staff working on it. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for a city to put this kind of resources into it. I mean, obviously it costs. There's Fort Collins, Colorado. They have Colorado State University up there as well. So it's also a university town of comparable size.
Do we want to put that in
We do
the
not.
link?
No, we don't. I'm not going to add this in, but it was just something that was brought to my attention recently. They were like, oh, TMAC's coming up. For you to think about, I thought it was worthwhile enough to let everyone know.
These aren't too long.
Yeah, like Fort Collins is doing stuff, not that we have to keep up with the Joneses, we want to be a well-run city, but, can do it. It's not just pipe dreams.
Being from Colorado, I will tell you they can't widen the road to save their life, but I will tell you they can build trails.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing? I would argue not.
I don't mind.
If you don't have an alternative transit along I-25, it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Having just ridden over the railroad tracks on the sidewalk because I didn't want to die. Trails are important also.
All right, so I think I'll go hands off of that. That's done with my item.
Thanks to Jeff for leading us on that all summer long. I feel really good about that and making sure critical aspects of our various transportation plans are not forgotten. So thank you, everyone. Good work, TMAC. Okay, next item. I think this is a continuation. I was gone last month, but I think Dave Hurtado brought up micromobility issues, and there was a discussion that sounded very productive. And we're so glad to have James Cornaby with us today to talk with us a little bit more about micromobility in Provo.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll primarily focus on parks and recreation, kind of the recreational aspect of it. And this is a short presentation that we've made with our, yeah, that's fine, I can leave it there. So, with our Parks and Recreation Board here just a few months ago. While, you know, there's been a lot of advancements in micromobility and e-assist vehicles, it creates a lot of new and exciting recreational opportunities. There's a lot of challenges that go along with that. So just to give a little bit of background, go ahead and move that forward one there. Yeah, thank you. Our current standard right now limits the speed limit on our trail system to 15 miles per hour. Are supposed to yield to pedestrians, and it's very vaguely worded as just no motorized vehicles. That's just the limit. So there's a lot of discussion on what that term actually means now. Obviously, when that policy was written, it was, pretty understood what a motorized vehicle was. But now, we probably need to do some more work there and better define what that is. Now, if you're caught riding on the trail on a motorized vehicle or in excess speeds of 15 miles an hour, it's a misdemeanor offense there. So, but as advancements have made on our trail system today, obviously we've seen all three classes of e-bikes, and then we've got these other electrically assisted or some other kind of systems that we have out there, from scooters, segways, trikes, golf carts, and any of the above, which is a great recreational opportunity, but we've got to find a way to be able to manage this. We've got people on e-bikes going up our downhill trails, that we have at Slate Canyon. We have a downhill course there, and we've got, we've had conflicts with users trying to go up that course rather, which is intended for a downhill course, for an actual biking opportunity there. We have a lot of impact on the Provo River Trail where people are, it's hard to say, but you get reports of people, they'll call in and say, hey, a bike came past me. They had to have been going 25 miles an hour. Really, were they? Maybe they were, not sure. But, the perception from the trail user there is, it's an excessive speed, right? So we're always trying to balance that of allowing a multi-use trail like the Provo River Trail and allowing multiple different users on there, but ensuring that all users feel safe. All users feel that they can go there, whether they're walking and jogging or riding their bike or whatever the case may be. We want them to feel safe. We want them to have an enjoyable experience. So we've got that challenge. Another one we've seen too is any recreational amenity you see in a park, a hill or a berm or anything like that, it's now becoming a jump or a course of some kind that they're making with their bikes, you know what I mean? And that's becoming a huge problem. We've had a lot of reports in the recent past with, conflicts with user groups, people not respecting the space there or what its, intention or what its intended use is or what it's designed to be used for. So we have a lot of these different things happening there. So it's brought up of, okay, where do we go from here? From a park system and from our, park trail system. What's the best way to manage this? If you look, every city or every community has got a different approach to this. There's not kind of this standardized method of moving forward on how they want to address these impacts or how we want to address, the advancements in these technology. So is the best way to limit or to manage this, allow all classes of e-bikes or anything like that and just simply limit the speed? If it's 15 miles an hour right now, is that too fast for our current trail system? Is from a multi-use recreational opportunity? We want to lower that down to 8 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour, whatever the case may be. But also when you do that, it comes down to an enforcement issue, right? Park maintenance staff, we're there to maintain the system and the infrastructure and stuff there, but we're not an enforcement agency either. So we rely heavily on our police officers. They have bike patrols and stuff, they'll go do that, but they have limited time and resources as well. So it comes down to an enforcement issue, how we want to do that. Do we want to limit the use? Do we want to just say this class is okay, this class is not? That's another option for us. You can also look at, do you want other classifications allowed on a paved trail system versus a natural surface trail system? Do we want to make that, classification separation at that level or not? And if we do that, it comes down to a lot of our trail system, we have a direct interface with the U.S. Forest Service or, other public properties. We want to make sure that we work very closely with our, our partners in these areas, but we want to make sure that we're not inviting an activity or setting a rule that allows them to go up. And a lot of these boundaries aren't clearly marked, so you don't know if you're leaving city property, like when you're heading up Rock Canyon or Slate Canyon. There's not a clear boundary line there where you're saying, okay, you're now off city property, you're now on the U.S. Forest Service. They have different rules. So we want to make sure that if we can at all possible, make sure that it's a cohesive rule and, you know, as they transition through that, we're not encouraging them to, you know, be breaking a rule or a standard that's already set forth there. And as that as well, you know, it comes down to that motorized vehicle. We talked about that just a little bit. We need to do a better job of defining what that is. And that may help us with some of this, you know, new policy or procedure that we want to move forward with. And then as far as from an enforcement agency or perspective, there are some communities out there that require you to license and register your e-bikes. And with that, you have certain rights. You can leave the active transportation area or the city streets and actually use those on a trail system, like our Provo River Trail or something like that. Others would not allow that. But one of the things we've also talked about is increasing the penalty for that. If you are caught in a park system or on a recreational trail, you know, on a vehicle that's not authorized in that space, is there a more severe penalty for that? And so these are some of the things that we've talked about in the past, some of the challenges we've experienced, and what's our best course of action? We don't know yet. But it's something that we've got to consider. We want to, like I said before, we want to make sure that we're creating a safe, you know, enjoyable space for anybody to recreate, and we want to make sure that people have opportunities and different opportunities. We don't want to just limit it to one specific user group, and that becomes a challenge. So, got to see how that goes.
Can I ask a question about
the
vehicle classes? Do most people who own one of these mobility devices know what class they're in?
It actually says it on my bike. It tells me what it is.
You're required to have the class
on the bike. Yep. And most of them do. The challenge that we've ran into, and it's a great opportunity for somebody that needs that, you know, assist in some way. They can get out, they can enjoy their bike, they can go enjoy the trail system and get outside and be more active. It's a great opportunity, and it opens up, you know, possibilities for these people that maybe, you know, that need that extra assist.
People like me, to be clear.
Well, anybody, right? But the challenge that we have is people will call in and say, you need to limit it to just Class 1 bikes. Well, Class 1 bikes that are pedal assist also have the capability of reaching speeds over 20 miles an hour, or up to 20 miles an hour. So if you're a diehard and you're, you know, maxing that vehicle's capabilities, you're still going to be able to exceed the current.
There's also a hack
speed limit,
too. My
right?
bike is Class 1, but if you switch the switch, it can now go into pedal assist 4 and 5, which will take you up to a Class 2 or 3.
Right.
And so it says it's Class 1 and less. So nobody
also-
knows. Nobody knows what my settings are except
I mean, there's
me.
also downhill, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
but
with me riding my not e-bike, I still break the speed limit on the Provo River Trail without thinking about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm
You
like,
know.
whoa, I gotta slow down.
But that comes to like trail etiquette, like an educational signage that says,
Right.
be polite. This isn't an off-road course. You know?
Right. And we've increased our signage considerably, but
But if you don't have an odometer or a speedometer on your bike, you don't
Right.
know you're speeding
Right.
unless you do it all the time.
and signs are hard, right?
Yeah.
Signs are there more as a support for the people that are going to respect the rule and for our enforcement agencies. But frankly, if you're out there and you want to just go as fast as you can, you're going to do what you got to do, right? So
My
it's
question
challenging.
about that is, people actually know the rules.
So we've got signs right now. It's a kind of a 3-tier sign. It's got the posted speed limit, a yield to pedestrian, and then a no motorized vehicle.
Okay, but what does
Right.
yield to pedestrian? I'm asking this
Right.
because I had a very specific incident happen when I was on the Provo River Trail
Uh-huh.
a couple weeks ago.
So it comes down to the trail etiquette, right? Most people that use the trail system know kind of what that means. Now, it's challenging, right? Because when you get up into the canyon where that interface between Provo, Orem, and the Utah County is, Utah County actually has a different lane, right? And it's marked on their trail setting. So pedestrians are, you know, directed to stay in this specific lane, and then there's a lane, directional bike lane divider
Why
there.
don't we do that in Provo?
You've got to make sure you've got a trail surface that's wide enough to do that. Now, a lot of the old Provo River Trail section I'll say, if you're familiar with the trail, you've seen the upgrades that we've made on the lower Provo River section, from the Utah County line up through Geneva Road, through the old KOA property, up to Independence Avenue. We've widened it significantly. We've improved the undercrossings, made a lot of improvements there. We're now in phase 2, which is the Cottonwood Greenway, or that 2230 North area, and then up University. You can see the improvements that are currently happening there. So, and that interfaces there from Will's Pit Stop up on North University Greenway. It's a lot wider trail surface. It's a lot safer. You know, it's a lot more enjoyable experience. But the little section in the middle there by Moon River, you know, that's what we've typically had, right? 5 feet wide, 6 feet wide, chain link fences on both sides, or real steep embankments. You know, the trail surface is kind of uneven. So when you get, exactly. So when you have trail sections like that, if you're trying to have 3 lanes in there, you know, double directional bike lanes and then a pedestrian lane, it's kind of impossible to do that. But once we get wider trail sections, we
have
can
to
start
have the
doing that.
entire trail wider before we put something like that on the trails that's already been widened. Okay, I'm just gonna say what the incident was,
right,
and then you'll understand.
Yeah.
I was out walking my dog with my husband, and we were walking the lower river trail, so we're walking Geneva Road down to out to the lake and back.
Yes.
There were several times that very fast bikes, I don't know how fast they were going, I don't have a speedometer, would come on the left around, but we had no warning whatsoever.
Yeah.
And my husband was an avid biker in Idaho, and in Idaho, you have to call out on the left. You have to warn them. So when he finally yelled at one of the bikes for saying, you need to call out, you're coming, they said, you need to look where you're going. And I'm just like, am I supposed to walk backwards down the trail?
Right.
Bikes should have bells. That's the basic part of cycling etiquette, regardless of what.
I always
It's
yell.
not the Idaho.
But that's
Yeah,
why
regardless of the rules.
And that's why I
Well,
think,
that's why I'm asking, what is the
Right.
educational outreach on this? Because if they're yelling back at me, watch out for me as a bicyclist,
Right.
it's like, I've got a dog on a trail and I'm walking
And you're probably going faster than 15 miles per hour.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why I'm,
So these are the exact types of user conflicts that we're experiencing throughout the trail system, right?
probably on a hourly minute basis.
Yeah.
Well, you also have like a group of kids who, if you were to delineate it where bikes are here and pedestrians are here and they're on their little bikes and mom's pushing a stroller and or maybe, you know, they're taking up more than their share. So passing in that area is going to be tricky anyway. So it comes down to the basic rules of
Announce your presence.
announce your presence. You shouldn't be going so fast that you couldn't slam on your brakes if you come around a bend and you see there's big wheels everywhere. Like,
I'm also waiting for the moment where I get clotheslined by a dog leash. That's like,
I wasn't afraid of that because we kept our dog, after the second bike came by, we kept our dog.
people are here, but the dog's over there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a central problem here, though, where, and I think that a lot of the issues we're facing on the river trail especially come down to the fact that it is trying to serve 2 different purposes which are in conflict, right? It's a recreational space for people to walk their dogs at a casual pace or to go on family walks with their strollers. It's also the only active transportation artery that's safe to get between 2 halves of the city. And like, so if somebody's getting to work or school or like, I'm not saying that they should not ride with bicycling etiquette, but we have pushed them, you know, people who are moving, people who are going through on this corridor, we force them to use the same facility that strollers and dog walkers are using. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an interesting problem where a critical transportation artery is also like a public park for people to enjoy. And maybe I think this dual use nature of some of these active transport facilities creates this conflict. And if we had different alternatives, then we could point to, you know, okay, you people who ride your cycling road bikes and are pushing on Strava for the highest times or whatever, maybe you shouldn't be on the same trail as the dog walkers and the moms with strollers, but there's just no safe option other than that right now.
I noticed a lot of that Strava group using the east side of University Avenue as that bike trail that's just striped on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Because there isn't you know, when they curved University Avenue's bike trail so that it's not as straight, I think that sort of pushed some of the speed demons off, but.
And I think that's okay. I think 200 East is a great road for them.
No, I'm talking about up north of Wilson Stop,
Yeah.
on the east side of University.
Yeah.
Like right on University, but the east side.
Oh, that's right. And in that case, you have a 10-foot wide shoulder with a 6-foot, hashed buffer. Like it's not a protected bike lane, but we can't have those because of snowplows. So it's like the best bike lane you could want for that kind of thing. And you see that by providing that alternative, those guys prefer that kind of thing to fighting with strollers and dog walkers. Once they get to the canyon, they're fighting 70-mile-an-hour speeds.
And that's where a lot of them get pushed onto the.
And they get pushed on the river trail. That's right.
But they do speed up and down like they're training for a race on that river trail, but it's not conducive to it.
That's right. Just to wrap up this point, though, we'll have these conflicts as long as we pretend that these two users are the same, and they're not.
But I think it comes down to, the original, years and years ago, the Provo River Trail's been existed for years. That was originally, the original intent was a recreational amenity, right? But as, population grows and people are more active on bicycles and stuff like that, they are using it as a transportation corridor, or a transportation route, which is great to provide that opportunity to them, but that's where we get this conflict.
Right, and so as a transportation, public works side, maybe we need to look at active transportation corridors that can duplicate or provide the same level of service as the Provo River Trail if we don't want transportation cyclists using the Provo River Trail.
And it comes back to the original point of this, is the micro-mobility.
That's right.
We're seeing a diversification of users and so maybe.
And technologies.
And so, maybe more options are needed. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, go.
James, just a couple of questions. I'm no expert in micro-mobility. How many of these motorized vehicles, many of them have mandatory components? How they're equipped, or is it purely optional?
On the e-bikes, only class 3 bikes are required to have them. Now, a lot of these other ones, the scooters and all that stuff, don't have them. You'll see these electric dirt bikes, essentially, is what they are. And most of those are not equipped with them, but they can reach speeds, 40 miles an hour or more,
By the way, just parenthetically, I'm looking at this picture here.
Well, they could go the speed limit, but that's not safe.
This is a good one, that's why I put in.
This is my dream.
Well, I'm looking at this picture, this incredibly intrepid, courageous, multitasking mother.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering, what do you call this kind of a thing?
Dangerous.
Obviously beyond any of our classifications.
Right.
Well, I don't think she even has an e-assist though.
Yeah, I don't see battery on there. But if you did have a battery and a mid or hub motor, that model of bike usually falls under class 2, where they'll have the ability to throttle and freewheel, but they would also have a limit. So lots of popular cargo bike companies use class 2 specifications for their bikes.
Incredibly impressive in many ways.
But like Lisa said, you can have the controller, or sometimes they'll even make it a little more obvious than that too.
Yeah, it's not even like illegal. They tell you how to do it. It's just, the sticker on my bike doesn't say the same thing.
Okay, so if the average guy on one of these devices doesn't have a speedometer, he's not going to know what 22 or 25 miles per hour.
Most of this kind of cargo will have.
For wanting to regulate it.
Sorry,
You're
that
gonna
makes
get-
it tricky.
You're going to get penalized if you go over a certain, he's going to say, how do I know? Can you buy optional speedometers for most of these vehicles?
Yeah, it's about $100.
If you made that mandatory by way of an ordinance,
That would be an outcry.
Yeah, a bicycling computer that would link speedometer is about $100.
You can get a cheap one for less than that, though.
Because I'm saying the flip
Right,
side
less
of the
than
problem
Break.
is there's two sides of the coin problematic. One is, how do I know I'm breaking the speed limit if I know? The other is, how do you enforce? We have cops with speed guns on Little River Trail. What if you had somebody so incensed, yes, so incensed that they perform a citizen's arrest? Okay? So they pull a
Turn
guy
him around
over.
the other way, so we're not going the same
So
direction.
somehow you drag this guy off his bike. They said, man, you were going 30 miles an hour. He says, prove it.
Yeah.
I mean, the enforcement issue is not an insignificant dilemma.
No, you're right.
If you're gonna have an ordinance that specifies actual mileage.
How do the trail guidelines, compare to the rules for riding on sidewalks? Because there are some sidewalks in the city that you can ride your bike on, and most of them you're not supposed to unless you're a
Yep.
small child, so.
Right. Yeah, and so that's another thing that we've talked about too, is trying to, it comes down to this same thing I talked a little bit about, you know, city property moving onto Forest Service property. We've got to make those connections and make sure that we're, you know, in sync with what those, wherever those restrictions are. I mean, we've got widened sidewalks and trail systems like on South State, you know, from 1860 up to about 900
And
south.
by BYU too.
Yeah, you know, so we've got these other areas where, are they allowed? Yes, are they not? We want to make sure that we're, you know, not creating rules that are prohibiting people from using the use as it's intended to design.
Or that you're pushing people onto the street.
Right.
That's dangerous.
Right,
Like all the scooters, don't they say, don't ride on the sidewalks?
Yeah.
So then we're pushing the scooters into the street, which by speed is probably more appropriate, but still
No, but
dangerous.
and it uncovers the sort of lack of good bicycling and scooter infrastructure, right? Like, they're on the sidewalk, not because that's where they want to be, but because that's where they're safe.
Well, that's why I was, one of the reasons I was bringing this up, and Bill had a point about enforcement, is there a way to do educational outreach?
absolutely, yeah.
Because I know we were doing like the 30-second Channel 17 flips, and
Yep.
I made a suggestion of roundabouts once, and they're like, yes, let's do that. Same thing for bike etiquette, because while a lot of people who are avid bikers probably know the bike etiquette, other people who are just like, I'm going out for a bike ride today, don't know that you need to, you know, signal you're coming on the left, so you don't
Yeah.
cause an accident.
Currently, we will post, you know, we'll have posts on our social media sites we have through our Parks and Recreation page and stuff like that. So we make regular posts about that. Typically, we kind of hit those hard in the spring when we know that a lot of these, we're gonna, I guess our trail use increases. So we'll try to hit those, and then we'll hit one in the midsummer. They'll tail off, you know, kind of in the fall, even though we have them year round, but we'll make seasonal posts.
Do you know
to try
how
to-
many followers there are, for example, on the Parks and Rec Instagram page?
I don't know.
Because my concern with that is that when we use social media, the city has so many different social media accounts, depending on what you're interested in, that it's only the avid people that probably follow it, and they already know the rules.
Yeah, my sense is that the people who see your posts are the people who are already doing it right. And I wonder if billboards or radio advertisements or something like that
We've
might.
also made, attempts to put it in our activity guide,
Mhm.
which comes out quarterly, and goes out to
Great.
every resident.
And a lot
So we
more
can do
people
that.
read that. Well, I think a lot of parents do, but
But yeah,
Or utility bill insert,
I
but
think,
some people, if they don't even get that in the mail.
But if you're a teenage boy, you're not reading any of that, right?
Well, that's why I was thinking, as we were sending this letter to the city council saying the website, is there a way to put up signs with a QR code on it that as they go by, just like the basic polite etiquette or trail etiquette?
And you could have those all around town instead of just on trails.
Yeah, and well, it could just be, do you know, like, what is your transportation knowledge or something like that? And you can scan it and go directly to the city website and
I like that.
get all this
Yeah.
information.
So then you get that younger group.
I think we need to, this has been a great discussion. I think we could talk about this for a very, very long time. And I think it's something that's worth TMAC's time. James, one last question for you. As you try to answer these questions, Parks and Rec probably looks to city council and mayor's office, right, to help answer these questions of enforcement and setting regulations, correct?
yeah, I think we would bring some recommendations and then, you know, work through that approval process.
We're gonna continue this. Let's keep going with Sandy and TJ. Let's talk more about e-bikes and scooters.
Hi, we're kind of at a different situation here. I'm here to talk about our partnership with Bird. And we were just lucky enough to have TJ Burkle here in town, and he agreed to come to answer questions, so I was pretty excited about it. Dallin did this red arc, and if you'll look, this is just the riding in June. And it shows the beginning and end of each scooter and or e-bike ride. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
We can't like blow that up a little bit.
Yeah, it's a pretty long route there. Okay. I was going to say it's a bit. Okay. So in October, we signed an agreement with Bird. It's a 24-month agreement, and they launched the first e-bike, which was very important to us. That's why we went with Bird, and the scooter. And this, you know, of course, this contract can be readdressed every 24 months. So we're kind of excited about that. On our electric scooters that we get from Bird, there's a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit that they can go, as you can see on the paved surfaces. The e-bikes, 20 miles per hour. So we have a little bit more control on the speed that these go than on the private ones that you're dealing with. When we commenced and when they launched, they required, you know, the 50 bikes. Again, that was very important to us. And then we were going to increase the number of bikes if the want was there, if the need was there. I think we're not quite to where we had talked about it, but I think it's just because of the usage. He was at DPI yesterday, and we've talked quite a bit. Scooters are kind of what they use the most.
So you just get ridden more, and that's what the data shows everywhere, really, but through here as well.
All right. Okay,
But we're up close to 150 bikes now, I think, deployed, yeah.
Yeah, so they're there. One good thing about with Bird is we have the revenue share and the community pricing programs. For every time someone starts one of those scooters, Provo City gets 35 cents per ride. Plus we get $50,000 annually. That is money that is turned back into the community as far as wayfinding and things such as that is what we're using it for. The payments, we have payments to community members through rider incentives, community education, and low-income credits are all part of the agreement with Bird, and Bird's fabulous about this. The low-income credits, a few are low-income individuals, are senior citizens, students with Pell Grants, and veterans. And they are required, I'll put my hands down, and they are required to show proof to Bird for eligibility. They just can't say it. Okay, sorry. Now, when you start these e-bikes and e-riders, there are things that are encouraged from Bird. That e-riders are to be ridden on the streets, and we're available in bike lanes and bike paths, but I do agree, a lot of them are ridden on the sidewalks just for safety concerns. Helmets are encouraged. They are not required, but they are strongly encouraged. Riding responsible is encouraged, and it also kind of indicates where these e-riders are supposed to be parked. Bird also requires a photo at the end of the ride showing where these are parked, which is a good thing. Bird does provide 24-hour customer service to report safety concerns, complaints, or to ask questions. And if a complaint, and trust me, I've called in many complaints to Bird, not many.
She doesn't use the 800 number.
I don't use the 800 number. I call it any complaint. But I do usually go online and see TJ. The online people are amazing. I mean, they respond very, very quickly. You know, they do ask for a photo, and they are quick to respond. So this does work. I mean, it's not just service here, it actually is working well. This was part of TJ's presentation yesterday, and I thought it was very, very interesting. So we usually, this is your slide, do you want to?
Sure. So average deployed, that deployed means like out on the street to be used. So for bikes, it's 140, scooters, 167. So That is per
How
day.
many- How many are available?
Yep.
So that doesn't mean they're actually getting used today, that just means they're sitting somewhere in the city available.
Yes, exactly.
And it can be used more than once.
Yes. And then that's how many unique users we've had to date, I believe. But again, as you can see, a little bit higher for scooters, and a lot of folks are repeat users as well. And then I asked our operations team just to pull the complaint numbers because I was curious. And we've been operating for 10 months. We're coming up on a year. I think 47 is pretty good in that period of time. I'm sure that's the 47 through our channels and from the city. So I'm sure there are other times when maybe people don't report it.
Are those complaints like they're not charged, not working properly, or are they complaints saying there's one on my sidewalk? And
more often number two, but it could be all of the above.
Yeah. So they're working, they're functioning.
Yeah.
It's just people who are inconvenienced.
If there's somebody blocked an ADA ramp, or there's a scooter bike where it's not supposed to be, that kind of stuff.
That's the complaints I received. And again, there've been few, so I didn't mean to say many. The few I have is an ADA ramp. Several have been that they ended up on Brigham Young University campus where they're not allowed. And
yeah, we're not allowed
so
on BYU's campus.
I think they get up on, on Ninth East and they coast them down or something. I don't know, because they don't work on campus. But I've had, that's where most of my complaints have come from, is Brigham Young staff.
Not responsible.
No, and rightly so. They don't belong there, they should not.
And then, per Sandy's slide earlier, I believe the agreement states we need to respond to incidents within 24 hours. Our standard for ourselves is try to resolve all of these 2 hours or less. And so the other slide showed 63% have hit that mark, and median resolution time is 1 hour and 45 minutes.
Now, this is another that Dallin did for me.
I gotta talk to Dallin. These are.
I know, aren't these amazing? I don't know. I become fascinated with them. On the left, on my left, downtown and South Campus, this kind of narrowed in on Center Street. And if you can see the blue dots, that's where the rides have started. And then I had him kind of go up onto South Campus area just to kind of see. So you can kind of see where the rides are. And the red dots are where they end and everything. That was fascinating. And then on my right, this is out, so this is showing somewhat in Orem and Provo. So, they are going up the trails, and I don't know. I thought that showed quite a bit on where, how often they're being used in many places.
But I love how concentrated they are on Center Street, First North. Like this really critical. We're always worried about parking on Center Street, accessing, and I don't have the data for this, but I would guess that most people who arrive on Center Street now do not come in a car. You look at how many scooters are there. You look at how many people are walking or getting there. And so what can we do to encourage that? Yes, I think it's great.
Well, and I'll tell you from an enforcement standpoint, our citation numbers are extremely down on Center Street.
Mm-hmm.
So if they are driving, they're driving on their lunch. So they're there for an hour to a half-hour lunch. We did kind of go out. We couldn't really narrow it down from the train station right there on 6th South and up. But like I said, it fascinated me. So I wanted to share. Okay, geofencing. That's another advantage that we have with a private scooter entity is we can geofence. Most Brigham Young University campus is geofenced. You can see that in the pink. All Christ of Latter-day Saint properties are geofenced, so they're not allowed on churches, the temple, or anything like that. They're not. All Provo School District properties. So all of your elementary, junior highs, high schools, they are not allowed on there, nor New Skim properties. One thing that TJ and I were just talking about is maybe geofencing Center Street to lower the speed limit on Fridays and Saturday nights when we have, like the art stroll or all of these activities that are going on where we have scooters and pedestrians, maybe trying to make everybody be able to enjoy them at the same time.
So by geofencing, you wouldn't make them not be able to operate there, they would just not be able to operate at their full capacity.
Correct. We're thinking maybe 10 to 12 miles an hour rather than the 15, you know, and then just kind of see how that works.
So do you have a lot of people who are using them and then they get to the south side of campus or they get to the high school and you just get a whole bunch of scooters that are just piled there because they can't go further?
Not like you would think.
Or do they, are they just not your users?
And we have staging areas on lower campus where they do park the scooters, and then there's incentives if they park them where they're supposed to park. And so if you can see, we have a lot of students that use these scooters. And they are around campus. They just, and they
go beyond a certain point.
Most of them are pretty responsible on where they're leaving them, because we're not getting a lot of the complaints. I mean, I think they see them for what they are, a huge privilege or I don't know, benefit for them to ride.
That's awesome.
Well, you can do both, Sandra. You can lower the speed and you can prohibit them from going on certain properties.
Yes, yes.
We can set geofences to make them either slow zones or no-go zones. So it could be as little as like a block or a much larger area.
Does it say on the screen so the rider knows that their battery's not just dying, but they're actually being limited?
Yes,
it gives them an explanation for what's happening.
Exactly.
Oh, and I should also point out, so Brigham Young University campus, this is the geofence during the football games or any major activity there. We do push that geofence out because there's such a number of pedestrians around the football stadium, if you will. So we go out 2 or 3 blocks. So the scooters and e-bikes kind of stop before they get
Closer to
intermingled.
Do the users like have a map on their screen that tells them where the geofence is, so they know before they invest in the scooter that they
They
can
can see it in the app, yes.
They can see that they won't be able to get where they're going?
It's red in the app.
Okay.
So, and again, it's worked very, very well. So this is our averages from October 22 to July 23rd. We've had an average of 5,072 rides per month. The average distance is 1.65 miles, again, first and last mile, and our average revenue share is $1,775. That does not include that $50,000 that we get once a year.
Sure, yep, Sandy covered some of this. There's a total number on the revenue and kind of the breakdown of the fee structure, and then if the numbers don't totally match up, I think I had our team pull them from through a day or 2 ago. So ours might be a little bit, but probably over now at this point, 55,000 rides, 1.65 on the average. Total distance traveled is close to 91,000 miles. Average ride duration is about 12.5 minutes, which is pretty standard for what we see in a lot of places. And then we also measure. We have a formula we use to measure car trips replaced. So we don't assume it's 1 for 1. Every scooter or bike ride is replacing a car trip necessarily, but we have a formula that we use. So almost 13 metric tons of CO2 saved by replacing car trips.
And those 55,000 rides, that's in less than a year.
Yeah, that's about 10 months.
I don't know why, but that 90,000 total distance traveled, I think that's why I included this. That kind of just amazed me. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, and I added this. This is just a new ordinance that was passed by our city council in May, and I just added it just for information purposes only. It kind of, people kind of explains, and they kind of did it for BYU. So BYU could have them not be on their campus, and the church not have them on their property. It just kind of outlined it. That's a right. And again, we haven't had any other churches or anything other than the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that has asked us not to have it on their property. And so that's the only reason.
Can you go back to that thing so I can just read more? You can keep talking.
Nope, that's all I have. Like I say, I didn't know if you were aware of this, and it's a new ordinance, so I wanted to make sure that I included it.
This is from May.
It was passed on May 16th.
It completely repealed like 3 different sections of the code. That this is, we're gonna unify them all under this one micromobility block.
So it's supposed to be motorized and non-motorized.
Any questions for Sandy or TJ? Thanks, Kate. Got a question, Paige? Comment? That was pretty
Not thinking about e-bike.
What transportation policy?
He just turned it off while I was reading. That's why we were.
I heard the word questions. I knew there was a page for questions.
I wasn't done reading.
What might Provo City do that other cities you've worked with do to encourage the adoption and use of these devices?
The answer I would give generally, but I've also heard it discussed here today, would be bike lane / active transportation infrastructure. Right? That's kind of always the answer. And it's, the best thing that we can do to encourage people to get out of their cars and use alternate modes of transportation. We always encourage people, that with the signage that you paint on the lane and everything you do when you go about this to make it, not just bike lane, but active transportation infrastructure, so that people know they can use it for a scooter or other things. And as you've all seen, these devices are owned more and more personally as well. It's not just our service. And so I think the answer, head and shoulders above anything else, is active transportation infrastructure. One thing we can do that we've done in other cities is, coordinate with Sandy and you guys to pull some data on what are the most common routes and where might that make the most sense. And if the city's got limited resources, which every city does, and we're going to invest in somewhere, where should we do it? We can help sort of advise in that conversation.
So you could do geofencing. You could technically geofence all of the trail systems to limit the speed, because they could not go fast.
Gosh, the ops people are going to kill that.
I know. That would take a long
The
time.
scooters are already limited, right?
Yeah.
And the bikes have speedometers, or they do not?
No,
Okay.
but we can set the speed.
Okay.
So the only reason I hesitate on that is because I know, when we set it, it's simple on a city grid on a street, for instance. I'm not an expert on the
Computers
that side
are
of it. Yeah, right. So I just don't want to overpromise on the trail.
I'm just saying, from our previous discussion of issues that we're having with multiple modes of transportation, if we could.
All right, the educational signage on the trail needs to say, "Don't make us geofence you."
But remember, this would only be for the private. This would only be for them.
Well, this is our argument when we talk to cities and universities that allow personally owned but not shared micromobility. Our argument is we can actually do a lot more to control and influence behavior than you can with people's personal devices.
A couple months ago, I was in Indianapolis, and they put a speed limited geofence of 5 miles an hour on a 20-foot wide trail that I was the only user on.
Oh.
And that was infuriating.
That was
I would agree to be judicious in the other.
Well, I think that was very enlightening, and I didn't realize you could fine tune the geofencing by the hour and by the block at such a level. That was very helpful. Thank you.
And one thing I forgot to mention, and I wanted to, is by state code, you have to be 18 to legally to be able to write these. And BIRD is very aware of this, and they're very helpful with who they will allow ride their scooter. So, I mean, it's not saying that.
App, and you have to download your driver's license,
But yet, it's not saying somebody's not going to let.
yeah.
It's still possible for a parent to unlock it and the kid to jump on. I don't
But
want
honestly, some parent at that point in time.
Yeah, right.
They're the ones that are computers.
Right.
And the kids tried out in a church parking lot. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So let's go. Thank you very much, both of you. Just so I can do pacing, Gordon, about how much time would you like for item 6, and Vern, how much time would you like for item 7?
What we can do if we're running short on time, we can postpone either one of our presentations.
I can come back next month. I want another lunch.
You're invited anyway.
That's already guaranteed.
Can you give us the budget documents so we can go over them? and then discuss
I would
them?
really like Gordon to talk us through it. I will give some background.
I'll do it in 5 minutes. 7. I
We
know, you tell me.
have 20. Let's go ahead and let Gordon go ahead, because I've been waiting on this one for like 3 months now.
We can get the update from.
And Vern, happy thoughts can happen this month or next month. from Vern.
Thank you all for having me here.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Honestly, another reason I like being here is just to have face in the name, so if you ever need anything from Bird, go to Sandy and we're happy to help with whatever.
Thank you. Thanks, CJ. So Gordon, why don't you go ahead and, depending on how it goes, we may or may not get to item 7 this month, and that will be okay.
I know. Okay, and I appreciate this. This, I think, is something that's very important. You can judge people's true priorities by following the money. I mean, that really dictates. Yes.
I should have given you a better introduction. One of the key questions TMAC has been talking about is this question of balance that we voted was kind of our top concern for Provo. Balancing the different modes and needs of all the users. And so as we were discussing, what does balance mean? What does it look like? Bill pointed out, well, let's look at where the funding is. That is one way to consider balance. So I asked Gordon to come present to us on funding so we can start getting at that question of balance. So back to you. Thank you. There's your background.
So yes, that's the background. So what I did, I started looking back several years, and part of the problem was I've only been here a year and a half. So I thought, to really be fair, those are the projects I know what's going on. I'm looking at the last year and a half and kind of showing you what the future looks like. And so what I wanted to make clear is that there's money that the city has that's discretionary, and there's money that the city gets that's targeted, that has to go for specific projects. So I'm going to take you through, and I think you're going to see a really, I won't paint you, but I will. It looks like we're pretty balanced as I judge this. We know that we need roads. That does garbage collection, it does emergency services, it trucks, people, delivery, all that stuff has to be for that level of infrastructure. And so it is going to be a little bit higher cost. And I don't include maintenance. I'm going to put down these numbers, and I'm going to say anything that has to do with mass transit, trails, bikes, sidewalks, I'm going to say is multimodal. Anything that does roads, even though the road, we're going to put in trails or anything, I'm just going to say it's road and the trails are incidental, knowing that there's still a sidewalk component and there's other things. I'm not going to try to break it out. 14% of this project, it's going to be a road project or multimodal, and it doesn't matter if it's bus, bike, sidewalk. Those all clump together. In my mind, you can have a different mindset, but I'm going to say they're the same part of this presentation. So I'm going to start real quickly. In 2022, the city applied for funding, and we partnered with other groups for funding. And so I want to go through this list. What I marked in red is what I would say is multimodal. So the first project, we partnered with UTA to do $3 million new UVX station up by BYU on 9th East. We're donating the right-of-way. We're doing other things to make sure that gets put into place. The money is earmarked specifically for that project. It comes from MAG.
Current timing on that, Gordon?
This next year will be up and built. So they're designing it right now. They've hired a consultant and they're going through that process. And that was $3.6 million. BYU applied for and received $4.6 million for the Provo River Trail Central improvements. If you understand where State Street and Columbia Lane is, if you've gone underneath that bridge on a bike at 15 miles an hour, you're a daredevil. No, I'm just saying, if you went at 2 miles an hour, you're a little bit dicey in my world. Underneath Vern and I walked it, and underneath the State Street Bridge, there's actually a doll with its eyes staring at you, taped up to the thing. It's a little scary, and spider webs all around it. So
little Sting Big King action there.
Yeah, I would just tell you. Anyway, we got
Gordon, sorry, just for the recording, did you say BYU applied or Provo?
Oh, excuse me.
You said BYU, so I was
Provo,
confused how they were.
BYU, no application. This was a city. This is what we put in for
Okay.
funding. And we matched this. And so, the Parks Department is going to be involved in that because it is a trail. So I'm counting that as 100% trail or multimodal.
Gordon, sorry, can you just go, what is the red versus black on this?
Oh, the red is multimodal, black is road. And you can.
So
I'm just
that's
saying,
specifically for those two bridges
all
there,
we're doing is
Columbia Lane,
we're
State
building
Street
the
area.
trails too.
But
Just one.
presumably when you build the new 820 North Bridge on the Provo River, you'll improve the trail underneath it as well.
And we'll put bike lanes.
That's right,
But it's
yeah.
a road project.
It's a road
I'm not defining it, I'm saying that's a road project.
Probably $2 to $3
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, but I started trying to split it hairs and I'm not.
Simplify it, it's
This is
okay,
good.
this
This is
is
good.
great.
So then the next project with, Utah County applied for money that's going to be the Utah Shoreline Trail that's going to be between Provo and Orem. That was 4.5. Then you see the $13.67 million. That is the 820 bridge over the Provo River. I'm counting that as a road project. We also applied.
That's the one that just got finished, right?
No, we haven't. We're going to start.
Oh, 820, never mind. I was thinking Lakeview or.
Yeah, the lake, I'll talk about that in a minute. These are the ones for MAG. And so I want you to see the spirit of what we're applying for road, or for MAG money. And I want you to kind of get a vision of the balance. We also applied for, as Provo, the 6 South Trail, the State Street Trail. And then we worked with Provo Bike Collective, and they got $400,000 for new building. I'm counting that as multimodal. So these, if you look at the numbers, and kind of roughly, I'm not going to sum these totals and say this is equal, but it looks like we're about in a really balanced request and expenditures from the MAG funding. And I'm not here to take a poll. I'm here to say my opinion when I looked at this. So it feels well balanced.
Where does MAG get that?
It comes from sales tax and
So it's just from the state?
federal, and it comes from a lot of places. And then each city goes and gets their piece of it. So it comes from there's a lot of places it comes from. So, and every 2 years, the city goes out and applies for these funds. So we're coming up in next year, we'll be getting another tranche and we'll be looking to apply for more funding. But this just shows you what I think is the spirit of what we value. That's how we applied for money. We also went in partnership with MAG and UDOT for raise grant funds. And we were awarded, this will come through UDOT, but we have a match for part of this, is $2.1 million for 200 East, which is specifically for active transportation, and $3.7 million on University. Now, it's a UDOT road, so they'll provide the match. But those are, again, Provo's name is on the list for those grants. So anyway, just so you're aware of the kind of grants we apply for and the money that comes from.
And is that above and beyond improvements that have already been made, or is that money that's already
That's
been
new
spent?
money coming.
Okay.
Is that 3rd to 6th South on 200 East?
Say that again?
200 East is from Center Street to 600 South, and on, and
So
then
the
on
southern end of that.
University Avenue is from Center Street to 8th North. That's the project limits.
What are the nature of the improvements?
They're varied, and we'll go through the details of that. UDOT's going to hire a consultant, and we'll be meeting with them, and we'll start the process of. There's a lot of things that can be done, but 3.7 sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but we will get through it pretty quickly with the things. A lot of signal things and some stuff that we talked about. Now I'm going to bring you into what we've done over 2022 and 2023 budget. I kind of blend them together because I was involved in the little bit of the putting together the budget last year, mostly not. This year I was a lot more involved. And again, these were all approved by the council. The first one is an error. So in 2022, we spent about $5 million on the roadway, but we actually spent $20 million on 2 bridges, and that was the bridges you're referring, going over the Provo River. That makes us look really heavy in the transportation side, but those were expensive bridges, but they are roadway items. And we got that money, again, from MAG, and it was earmarked for Lakeview Parkway. It wasn't like the city could have taken that money and spent it elsewhere. That was required for that. When we did those projects, they are really cool trails underneath. We had put openings and murals underneath, so it enhances the experience of the trails, but I'm counting as a road project.
Are those connected now to the Provo River Trail? Or,
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go into
They weren't like
You don't have to go around those.
6 weeks ago. Okay.
We just didn't tell you.
No, I was expecting a personal
Today, you hear it
invitation
today.
to the river. That's good. I will go ride it tomorrow. But
Greg, we don't want you using the trail, because you
I go
haven't
too
had
fast.
any to ride.
We also got money.
Oh, that's true, the Delta restoration, because we had to put 2 Provo River bridges, but anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So there were other people that funded those, but it's our name, it was our project, just so you're aware. I didn't want to, so it should say 25 million where it says 5 million. This year, we're under construction for 2.5 million to build, we're adding to the parkway. We're from I-15 down to the airport. That's going to be, we had built half the road, now we're building the whole road. The airport's been a success. We're excited about the park, so we felt that would be the next phase, and that's under construction now. The project is actually 4.5, but 2 million of it is utility. So I stripped that out because regardless of, we need sewer lines, we need water lines, I didn't want to paint that project.
How much of that is, my understanding was that when projects are developed along that corridor, that they have to pay for the road improvements.
So,
How much of that comes into play?
developers are responsible. So you're going to see next year, we have another project coming out, and $800,000 comes from Ivory, and some other developers are paying their portion, and we're just going to do the project. So they're paying cash, and then we'll do the project.
So it just will add to the pool, yeah. So
Yeah.
That's how you can afford to do it, is because the developers are also kicking in
And
some of what they were
and a
required
lot of
to
this,
pay.
and some of this money still is coming from MAG. It's other kind of earmarks, and it's,
It just helps with it.
yeah. So
Provo-specific money that we're looking at.
we're doing matches with all of these. So I'm going to count us, we're spending 2.5 million bucks this year on a roadway. Even though some of the money came from other people, we aggressively went out and got the money, just like it's our money. We couldn't go take it and spend it elsewhere, but it shows our heart is for that level of transportation. That's what we're going after. That's what we're doing, all of the money. So I don't want to break up, this little bit came from this and this. It's Provo money. The city council has to appropriate it. We don't get to spend it here until but we tell them this is where it came from. They say, yeah, you can spend it there.
But when I approve a project under the impression that, when we, as a planning commission, approve a project under the impression that some of those funds are going towards the road, it actually is in fact going towards the road.
And it
That
has
was my
to.
question. Okay, cool.
Yes. So University and Canyon Road, this is right by Provo. There's a bad intersection there. The city council,
Provo High School.
Old
Provo High School, right between the two. So we're leveraging that. The project really cost $2.6 million or something. BYU's kicking in money, UDOT's kicking in money. We're kicking in $700,000 of city actual funds for that. It will benefit pedestrians. It has a good element for that, but it's a road issue. So I'm keeping that road.
It's a $3 million overall project.
But our portion's
No longer doing the pedestrian bridge, is that right?
no.
That was a different.
So we have an application in for that, and we don't know. We won't know till November.
They're still gonna realign the intersection.
Application
To
Federal Highway Administration.
Yeah.
We just won't hear back till the end of the year on that one.
But either way, this intersection has to be realigned for that, and we can use that money for our match. If we had the money, I'd put it on the list if we'd been awarded, but we haven't been awarded. So once we're awarded, I put actual dollars on this list. Yeah, so the regional sports park, the city is building a park, and it's great, but there's roads in there. The roads and utilities. The roads and utilities are about 4.5. I took the utilities out. The roads through the park are 2.5 million bucks. And the two signals, we're gonna have a signal where the airport is and one further down. I count that as all road project. There's sidewalks all associated with that, and and that is included in the cost, but I'm just saying it's all a road project, so there'll be sidewalks all along there. The UTA pedestrian overpass, that's actually a $10 million project, but UTA is doing it. The city appropriated and gave $600,000 for that project because of escalating cost. It will be finished in November, but I'm counting that as a multimodal project. 600 South sidewalk between 100, so this particular project, 600 South, is the first and last mile, trying to get some sidewalk built there. The 100 West sidewalk, same thing. Those are city funds that we control. They could have gone elsewhere, but they're going for this so that when that opens up, we have sidewalk that feeds, 8-foot sidewalk that feeds right to this site. And so I'm counting that as all multimodal. It will include asphalt that will touch the sidewalk, but that's incidental. It's a sidewalk or a multimodal. We also, UDOT is finishing 300 South, or they're going to do 300 South next year, but they were not going to widen the sidewalk. So we are contributing $150,000. So now they're going to widen it to 6-foot sidewalks. Even though it's a road project, our cash is going to sidewalk. I'm counting that as our belief. We're giving money for multimodal.
That's a pretty good investment if you look at how much sidewalks there versus how much sidewalk you're building in the previous two projects. Way to leverage you got there.
Yeah. It's a really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 900 East 820 signal, Kahan just got it designed and we just awarded the contract. It'll be built this year. It will help pedestrians, but I'm counting it as a road.
Yeah, I mean, it is a road project, but like you say, it's there's a mile gap between the two pedestrian crossings.
And it feeds to Wasatch. It just does
and the BYU, yeah.
It'll be great. I don't have to go that way, but that one, I feel badly for anyone who has to make a left-hand turn
but
there.
I'm just telling you, I'm counting that as a road project, just so you see a balance. Center Street raised crosswalks is going to start Sunday. $250,000. I'm calling that 100% multimodal. Walking neighborhood, Kahan was awarded $250,000 CDBG funds to put in some more sidewalks, and so he's going to do that next year. But that is multimodal.
Is that sidewalk improvements, or are there actually areas in Joaquin that don't have sidewalks still?
Improvements.
So like tree root?
So it'll be
Bulb out.
Oh, those kind, okay.
shorter. We have deep trough gutter, we'll bring it to our standards, so yeah, improvements are called.
Improvements that will help bikes and pedestrians.
Yeah.
To make it feel safer to go up and down those streets. So I'm counting those as, we're not building a new street, but we're going to be improving the streets for bicycles and for pedestrians.
Wasatch Elementary.
Wasatch Elementary, we're missing sidewalk up there, and we're going to add sidewalk.
Same thing with Shoreline.
And Shoreline, we're missing sidewalk, we're going to add sidewalk. So now when you look at these numbers, and just start, other than the $25 million for phase 7 of, you're seeing that we're spending probably within 40% on, 35 to 40% of what I would say 100%. And yet, even one of those car ones still have multimodal elements. So I would, in looking at this and looking at other city budgets and how they spend money, I think Provo is doing a really good job of making sure that everybody's needs are being represented by the budget. So so I'd congratulate the council on that. So I don't know, maybe you're spending too much money one way, but that's what it looks like to me in a year and a half of you spending money. Any comments?
This is extremely useful information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gordon. And I hope that's helpful to the council also, Bill, to be aware. that the stated goals of trying to have balance are manifest in the spending. That's really good to know.
I also like how these are like distributed throughout the entire city. It's not like there's one derelict area that we're really focusing on. These projects are all over the place. That's kind of cool.
This does not include road maintenance, because when Vern and, our maintenance guys have gone out there, they've replaced handicap ramps, they've torn out, none of that's shown here. That's because I look at maintenance as a separate issue than capital projects. So when we repave a road, we're striping back bike lanes, we're doing things, so we're actually getting bike lanes in other ways that I'm not including on this.
Just for reference about what is the scale of the capital versus the maintenance budget, like over the same period?
Maintenance budget is much smaller.
Much smaller.
Maintenance
I hate
budget
to say
pretty
it.
much almost fixed annually, about, what is it,
Because it comes from the
I would say
percentage that we pay, or the
$3 to
$3.
$4 million.
$4 million. It's almost a fixed number in a way,
And we can burn through that pretty quick.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Gordon. Vern, thank you for being gracious and letting us push that item to next month. Good meeting today, everyone. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in December.
Thank you.
That makes me feel a little bit better.
I feel much better.
I
feel great. Funny for, and now that I know that the Provo River Trail is